Welcome to Life Happens, where Texans come to protect their legacy and prepare for the second half of life. Join your host, attorney Kim Hegwood of Your Legacy Legal Care, and our weekly guest as we navigate the challenges that emerge as life happens. Now here's your host, Kim Hegwood.
Good morning and welcome to Life Happens with me, Kim Hegwood, and our very special guest today, unless if I can get all the words out, is Krista Montague. Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
So far, so good. It's a great day. You're always glad you wake up. Everything's lovely, but today we're going to talk about some things that are very important. And I'm assuming Krista is the name of your company, Dementia Success Path.
Yes. Yeah.
Perfect. All right. So that's kind of going to give you a clue, listeners, that we're going to talk about dementia today. So we're going to talk about some tips and tools to help the dementia caregiver, because you can never have too many. And because being a caregiver is hard work. So can you tell us a little bit about you and what made you want to help caregivers?
Yeah. So, hi, everybody. I'm Krista. I was a professional dementia caregiver for a lot of years. My original background was in Geri-psych. I kind of fell into it on accident in that originally I had gotten a college degree in music therapy. Sounds pretty not related, but interestingly enough, music therapists tend to work with either folks with dementia or autistic folks most often. I almost call it like a kitchen sink profession, where when folks are struggling with solutions for a certain demographic of person, they're willing to throw everything in the kitchen sink at that problem. That's usually when we come in. So I got hired in the therapy department of a geriatric psych hospital right after college, and that's how I started my journey as a professional caregiver. Because I'm sure anybody who's worked in healthcare knows that they're chronically understaffed, so inevitably you end up doing a bunch of things that were not originally in your job description. So that was the journey there. I cared for thousands of folks with dementia in Geri-psych. So that's why a lot of my content is really about handling challenging behaviors, because I did that hands-on for a bunch of years. And I've been in home health, I've been in senior living, so I've been all over the place when it comes to senior care and dementia care. So that's a little bit about my background and how I got into helping folks, and helping caregivers specifically really happened during the pandemic, wherein my patients couldn't leave the hospital for a very extended period of time, obviously because COVID. And I felt a lot of pressure to really be a big emotional support for my folks. So I started joining these caregiver Facebook groups and saw the same questions post over and over and over again, which led me to start creating videos, and it kind of snowballed from there. And now I've coached thousands of dementia caregivers on how to handle challenging dementia behaviors.
So that kind of leads me into my next question. So I like the way that you answered that appropriately for me. So what topics did you find that most caregivers wanted to know about?
Yeah. So I'd say the greatest hits as far as things caregivers ask about are hygiene. So how to get their person to shower, how to get their person to change clothing. I say the next one is how to respond to them asking to go, their loved one asking to go home, their person asking for deceased relatives is a pretty popular one. Let's see what else. Sundowning is a really popular topic as well. So I would say definitely the more challenging, like they don't know exactly what to say or do type situations, it tends to be my most popular topics.
So what do you think that are, 2 to 3 things that a caregiver can do to help these challenging behaviors?
Yeah. So I would say the first thing they can do is really take a breath and get themselves calm, and understand that you do not have to solve this problem instantaneously. I think that's what really trips people up, is they'll see, just to give a quick example, their loved one is asking to go home, And a lot of folks, they'll just try to do like a 180-degree distraction because they're just so nervous about not being able to answer a question the way that they're used to with anybody else. But keeping yourself calm really helps you be able to, get curious and not necessarily rush through it. So when I say get curious, what I mean by that is you want to really understand what your person with dementia believes. Because at the end of the day, you aren't going to be able to use logic, reason, or evidence to convince them of something that you already believe. You're way better off learning what it is that they believe in that moment, and then either trying to meet that need if it's possible, or if, say, you're in a situation where they're asking to go home to mom and dad, give them a reason why they can't go home to mom and dad right now that would make the most sense to them based off of what they already believe. A lot of people will call it like being in the reality or meeting them where they are, but a lot of it is you're just being consistent with what they already believe. Like a lot of folks struggle with, like, I can't lie to my mom, or I can't lie to my husband, or whoever the person is with dementia. And it's like it's not really about lying. It's more like you're being consistent with what they already believe. Like even if you did try to tell them the truth from their perspective, you would probably still be lying to them. So truly, you're not going to win anyways.
Yeah, definitely. I tell clients all the time, you do whatever you have to do to get through it, So if you've got to tell a lie, tell a lie. So because sometimes it's just easier on them and that person that has dementia. And so so what do you find, in the things that you're doing now, the most some misconceptions that caregivers have about dementia?
Yeah. I'd say one big misconception, it just depends on how much they knew about it before, but one big misconception is that they can just quiz them into remembering more things. Like there's some sort of magical brain game that can magically get them more, more remember more things. Like I think they think of it in terms of like trying to jog their memory. Uh, like they'll show them pictures, be like, do you remember this person, or do you remember my name? And it's just, it just makes everybody uncomfortable when truly what's there and what's there to understand is you want to make the most of the cognitive and physical abilities that they still have. I think that's another mistake a lot of caregivers make, is that they really underestimate how much they can still do, but they overestimate what they can't. So it's kind of a lose-lose there. So how you bridge that gap is you set them up for success. So whether that's maybe you're taking them to a family gathering, you have everybody wear name tags. So them trying to recall everybody's name is not a factor. Or maybe when you're at home, to set them up for success, maybe they can't do the task of, like, say, the dishes from start to finish, but they could hold the dishes for you. They could hold it under the sink while it's being rinsed, or they could hand it off to you to put it in the dishwasher. But they're still participating in the task. Like they're still participating in the household and not being served all the time like they're kids. I mean, truthfully speaking, it's just not a great feeling to just feel like you're so 100% dependent on everybody around you. And even if you can be involved in even small parts of what it takes to be a part of the household, that makes a huge difference in their mental health and honestly how you feel as a caregiver too.
Yeah. And so I think everything you do to try to make things easier and better is always a good thing. So how can new dementia caregivers prepare themselves for this journey?
Yeah. So I definitely love that you guys have a whole platform when it comes to getting folks legally set up, because that's definitely one of the very first things that when they get diagnosed, if they get diagnosed, because sometimes that can be a side effect of dementia, is that their person is in really hardcore denial that they even have anything wrong with them to begin with. But let's just say you do get the diagnosis, the next thing would be to seek an elder attorney and get that power of attorney set up, because it could be really complicated and expensive to go in there. And I'm sure this is the song and dance that you guys have talked about endlessly. But yeah, I definitely suggest that as definitely a very first thing anybody should do, just to make their lives significantly easier for later on. And beyond that too, I would also say don't ever promise yourself or your person that you're caring for that you're going to like never send them to long-term care, because at the end of the day, no one has a crystal ball. No one knows what's going to happen. I think no one truly knows, can fathom even just how all-consuming caregiving for someone is with dementia, especially in like the middle to later stages, until they're actively doing it. So having that long-term care in the back of your mind, whether that be through private pay or getting on a path with an elder attorney to go through Medicaid, to pay for long-term care, and just having that in your back pocket even can be really a light at the end of the tunnel. And really, even just having the option in the back of your mind can really prevent that burnout. Just knowing that if it's too much, that you have some options for help. Because at the end of the day, probably another thing too that really caregivers should know is no decision you make for them ever has to be permanent. So let's say you did place them in long-term care and you decide this place is terrible. You can always move them to a different place. You can move them back home. Like there's no rule that says that they are stuck there forever.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So absolutely, like getting that help and that support. And the thing too is like if truly being the sole person providing that care is too much, you can always visit them every single day and be on the caregivers, the professional caregivers there, and make sure that they're well taken care of. But at least it's not all 100% on you. Like there are plenty of ways to be a caregiver. So those would be like the two things: definitely getting that legal piece, that financial piece in place, so that we don't have to go through the court systems and all that mess later on. And just keeping your options open as far as help.
And speaking of help, you offer some free resources on your website for caregivers. Can you tell us a little bit about those?
Yeah. So I offer several cheat sheets, and I also have a weekly email where I send out videos and cheat sheets and all kinds of things. And when I say cheat sheets, it's sometimes it's guides on like exactly what you can say to sundowning, or to them asking for mom and dad, or asking to go home. Or it could be activity ideas. It could be a shopping list done for you with links done for you. So it's a really great free resource for caregivers just for joining our email. So definitely go to our website, dementiasuccesspath.com. That will get you started on getting at least a little bit of support from us.
Perfect. And that's it, right? The dementiasuccesspath.com.
Yeah, and if you want the free cheat sheets as well, you could put in dementiasuccesspath.com/free cheat sheets bundle, or you could just go to our website, dementiasuccesspath.com, and go to free resources, and you should find it there as well. Yeah, at the end of the day, we just want everybody to have an easier time and not have to go through the trial and errors that so many of us have to go through before we find our way.
And so I always recommend that, clients get in support groups and things like that, because, I tell them all the time, I'm like, other people don't want you to have to go through what they've had to go through. And they're a wealth of information, so that can save you time, energy, and maybe even money, down the road. So I appreciate immensely, Krista, you being on the show today and providing our listeners opportunities to gather more information and get some good advice from you. So it's been great, and we look forward to having you on the show again soon.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Life Happens with Kim Hegwood. Be sure to tune in every Thursday at 10 a.m. wherever you listen to your podcast as we navigate through the challenges that emerge as life happens. The content of this podcast does not establish an attorney-client relationship or constitute attorney-client privilege, legal, medical, financial, or any other professional advice.